Heyo everybody, it's Johnny5 Alive here and welcome back to another TemTem video. Today we're going to be looking at the Nag Dojo, the first major dojo that you're going to encounter in Act 2, which is technically considered the Fire Dojo, and you will be fighting the boss, Rawiri. That's a really hard one to pronounce, but stay tuned and let's check it out. All right, welcome back, everybody. If you guys are new here, be sure to smash that subscribe button. If you end up enjoying the video, please do leave a like. If you'd like to support the show further, check out my Patreon page. Links are down in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's dive right into today's boss battle. As I mentioned, this is the Nag Dojo with the boss Rawiri. It's a really tough one to pronounce. And this is technically considered the Fire Dojo, but throughout this act, they're going to be throwing a lot of nature TemTem at you. And there are nature TemTem in this boss battle. So it's a bit of a nature fire boss, but primarily fire. So let's take a look at his lineup going into this. He's going to be starting off with the Daindry, TemTem, and Tatiru, which are nature and neutral, but then we'll follow it up with a Banapi, Magnus, Rays, which are all pure fire TemTem, and then last but not least, there will be a Teifu at the very end. So what kind of things should you prepare coming into this battle? So as you can see, my starting lineup, I chose to go with a Nesla and a Saku, and honestly having a Nesla out isn't particularly the best choice because lightning damage does not counter neutral or plant, and in fact plant is somewhat resistant to lightning. But where it really comes in is the Saku. It is a plant TemTem that does toxic damage, and plant TemTem take double damage from toxic. So it was just you won't have any toxic TemTem up until this point of the game, but some of the nature TemTem also have toxic abilities even though they're not actually toxic. So you can get some good damage out on the Daindry early, making use of one of your plant TemTem and kind of just getting rid of them, getting them out of the fight that early on. So as you can see in the battle, I was hoping the Nesla would last a little bit longer and get a little bit more damage out, but unfortunately the damage that they were throwing at me was just too high. I didn't realize that the Tatiru was a Luma TemTem and the Daindry was just hitting way too hard. So it was definitely a bad choice starting with the lightning TemTem, so definitely try to avoid using that one. What I would actually recommend, because it's the Tatiru's neutral, is coming out with a mystic TemTem if you have one, which would probably be your Barnchi or your Hoochik if you started with that pick in your game. If not, you can always get the rare Barnchi from Act 1, which can do some pretty darn nasty damage to the neutral TemTem. And there are some fire TemTem choices leading up to this boss, so if you want, you could start with a fire TemTem and make work of that Daindry very quickly, but you're going to probably want to swap them out considering all the fire TemTem you're going to be going up against after that. So I do end up pulling out my Hoochik, which does make quick work of the Tatiru really quickly. Now after you take out the first two, he's gonna follow it up with two fire TemTem, the Magnus and the Banapi, which are pure fire. So if you have any water TemTem, this is where you're gonna go really ham. Now there's not a whole lot of earth TemTem in the game up until this point because fire is weak against earth, so that is definitely an optional counter. The only one that I can think of would be your Sconch, the little rat TemTem, and it has a little earth ability. However, that earth ability is fairly weak in damage, so even though it counters them, it doesn't hit very hard. So what you kind of want to do against these fire TemTem is just try to avoid using TemTem that take damage from them and just try to lay out some general damage. So using fire, plant, or crystal is not very effective against them, and you're definitely not going to want to have any plant or crystal TemTem on the board because you will take double damage. So that means you're kind of open to doing some regular damage with lightning, mental, wind, melee, or toxic. Those are all pretty decent options. So as you can see in my game, I pull out the Oshiara rare TemTem, which I did get from the rare spawn farming, and it is extremely powerful when you use Tsunami. You will just basically one-shot those fire TemTem and they will be no more. Followed up by a fire and nature TemTem, you can pretty much dispose of the rays quite quickly. However, the Teifu is nature, which water does not work against, and water will take bonus damage from Teifu. So you are at risk of losing your Oceana or water Temtem at the very, very end, which is something to be careful. But if you have a Mystic out, as I did, you can manage to put it to sleep and just focus on burning the rays down. So I end up just finishing off the Teifu with some general damage, throwing out some lightning and melee using the Sconcher and Genki, which are okay options. Now, the thing about this boss is he wasn't too hard, and going into these, I tried to do all my boss battles without using any potions or any revives for the max amount of challenge, and to also kind of min-max my picks. I'd like to try to make my picks as good as possible, go into them. However, it's always unclear what you're gonna get, and sometimes it's a little unpredictable, and it's just, you have to do a little pre-study. So looking back and reflecting on this battle overall, it was definitely a bad idea to come swinging with the Nesla. Should have saved that for later, or just kept it away, to be honest. It does do water damage, so I came out too early with that. Probably would have been better to start off with a plant and a mental Temtem to make quick work of his starting lineup. But with all that said, he's still a pretty easy boss battle for considering. I felt like the Water Dojo was more tough because you had less Temtem to prepare and to go in, and now you have a bigger arsenal, you have more to choose from, so you kind of have a little bit more luxury. And overall, his Temtem aren't very diverse. It's just fire and nature, essentially, so you can pretty much come in with the hard counters ready. With that said, the next dojo that you guys will see in the next video is much harder, and the following one after that is definitely the hardest one I've encountered, and was extremely difficult. So there's some pretty fun dojo master boss battles in this game so far. That is, if you're not really using potions or, you know, those things. I think that will give you a little bit of an edge, but not by much, to be honest, because when you do use a potion, it will take up your Temtem's turn. But it is all about kind of trying to figure out what the good lineup is, what the good counter is, and it's always fun to see what these bosses throw at you. So definitely enjoying the game still, and still plugging away at it. But if you guys are playing the game or are thinking about picking up the game, definitely check back in for more of these videos, because I'll be showing up the lineups of all the dojo masters throughout the Temtem story. And that's going to do it for me here today, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoy, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Temtem videos, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.